Welcome to 5G Techritory, and this is our communication platform where you can watch us live. We'll move right away for our next session, which will be panel discussion. But before that, I'd like to remind you that you can reach our speakers on our communication platform. You can find a list of speakers on the upper right corner of the platform. Please find which one of those are available for contacting, and you can find contact information on their social networks and networking, and see what they are interested in, and see maybe you can have some connection with them. And of course, we will not always have enough time to ask questions live, but we will try to do it after the session on the commentary box, so you can use that opportunity too. And by the way, you get some extra points by asking questions and being involved. But now, let's go to panel discussion, and it's first year of 5G, the operator's view, which will be hosted by GSMA. And for the first time, large mobile operators will give their view on the first year of 5G deployment in the regions where they operate. And we will have a moderator of this discussion panel, Head of Public Policy at GSMA Europe, Mr. Laszlo Toth. And Laszlo, you're on to announce what you are going to talk about and your discussion panelists.
Thank you, Vadis. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Last year, we had the opportunity to be physically in beautiful Riga for the 5G Techritory, and we mostly talked about trials and announced launch dates for 5G services. Nevertheless, there was a broad agreement that 5G is more than just a generational step and represents a fundamental transformation of the role that mobile technology plays in society and economy. And since then, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed with great clarity the importance of digitalization, and as we face the economic consequences of the crisis, digital ambition seems to be more pressing than ever. And in the meantime, many mobile operators have launched 5G services, so today we have the opportunity to discuss the experience and the remaining challenges, in particular from mobile operators' point of view. And I've been joined by excellent panelists today. I would like to welcome them on stage or virtual stage, some of them. And first of all, let me introduce Claudia Selli, who is Executive Director for European and Political Affairs, and also Head of the Brussels office at AT&T. She advocates AT&T's positions in Brussels and Europe, also active in international organizations such as ICANN and Brussels associations. She serves as a board member and chair of the Digital Economy Committee at American Chamber of Commerce to the EU. And prior to joining AT&T, she worked at the European Commission and the European Parliament. Claudia, we are eager to hear AT&T's experience in 5G deployment. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Laszlo, and thank you very much for having me here today with you. I'm really honored to be part of this discussion and this very interesting panel. I wanted to focus my initial remarks on two main points. First of all, the impact, as you were saying, Laszlo, that the COVID has been having on all of us and on our network. And secondly, also on policy or regulatory wish lists to allow 5G deployment. So as you were saying, one important lesson that the health pandemic has taught us is certainly that access to high-speed, reliable, stable connection is key, not only for our future, but certainly in our lives. While during the lockdowns, many activities have been shutting down, schools have been closing, the digital technologies have really allowed us to continue operating online, buying online, learning online, and this conference is a clear and excellent example of that. At AT&T, we are committed, of course, to building the 5G-enabled future. And during the lockdown, at the height of the lockdown in March, we have really seen a spike in data traffic on our network. In fact, if you take dates in March compared to February, we have seen an increase of about 20% on data traffic in our network. We are carrying more data than ever. In fact, since I mean, we have around 391 petabytes of data, 20% more than pre-pandemic. And also, you know, since 2007, we have seen a spike in data traffic around 580,000%. And of course, this requires investment. We have been investing around 135 billion US dollar in US market. And back in July, we also have announced our presence in around 395 markets. So, of course, 5G brings certain requirements, but as well a lot of opportunities. In fact, if you think that it can support around 3 million jobs and certainly add 500 billion US dollar to you know, basically the US GDP, it's incredible. And we think that by 2022, this 2035, sorry, this could certainly support as well around 22 million jobs. So it's really incredible. But what is required for that as well to happen? I think that government can be very helpful in different areas, certainly in creating an environment that can foster investment. And I see three main areas for intervention. First of all, implement what they are called the Prague proposals, which call for open, interoperable, secure standard, as well as industry best practices. Secondly, make more spectrum available on the market for operator to be able and plan. In fact, it's critical for operator to be able and plan, and we need to think today about the necessity of the future. And I think that the FCC has been doing a great job in bringing and making available, you know, spectrum on the market for operators to be able and basically deploy 5G. Last but not least, fostering an innovative environment that can create, also for 5G use cases in a twofold way. From one end, prioritize security of supply chain, which is certainly critical. And secondly, also ensuring a level playing field in international trade by avoiding data localization and by fostering policies that can allow data to move freely and be portable. So it is really difficult to predict how the future will look like, but certainly more digital. More people might be working from home. More interaction might be happening online, and sales will be online, more devices and IoT. So it's critical and essential that we all work together, also with government and industry, to create the right environment for 5G to spur. And I think it will certainly play a central and a key role. And I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks a lot, Claudia. Thanks for all these thoughtful remarks. We will discuss them a little bit in more details in the debate. But now I would like to introduce Wolfgang Kopf, who is Senior Vice President for Group Public and Regulatory Affairs at Deutsche Telekom, reporting to the CEO. Wolfgang joined DT in 1995. And since then, he had various senior positions at DT headquarters as well as in T-Mobile. He was responsible for market entry projects in various European countries, also the regulatory part of DT's US market entry. He has been instrumental for a variety of successful projects at DT Group. And prior to DT, he worked for an international law firm and also the European Commission. Wolfgang, please let us know how you see the developments on 5G in Europe and from Deutsche Telekom's point of view.
Well, thank you, Laszlo. I got some slides. I hope you can see them. I can't see them at the moment. Are the slides available?
Yes, we are also having them in here in studio on a big screen, so that is also the way to see them.
Okay, so I don't see them, but anyhow, I have a copy in front of me just to be sure. Let's start with slide 2, the COVID acceleration of digitization. I think what Claudia said already this is really true when it comes to how our networks have to carry additional traffic. And in the middle graphic I'm having here gives you some ideas on German traffic and also on average European traffic and what we had to carry within 1 or 2 weeks throughout Europe in terms of additional traffic. The good news is I think almost all European networks didn't have any problems in carrying these large traffic numbers. That shows the resilience of our industry and also the ability to cope with unforeseen crises. I mean, we are a critical infrastructure and looking at these traffic increases, that's a very good news for everybody working on such topics. We at Deutsche Telekom had also quite interesting tasks to cope. So within 3 days, we had to transfer almost all employees into home office, including our call centers. That worked without any difficulties. Everybody, even inside Deutsche Telekom, was surprised how smooth that worked. And we later found out, and we now know, call centers in home office are more efficient than call centers in office spaces. So that will also tell you some thing about the future of our work. And we have today no time to discuss this, but this is an important result of COVID, of course. In addition, we were tasked to develop the German Corona warning app. I had the pleasure of co-leading this project, and that was also quite interesting how fast two companies, Deutsche Telekom and SAP, could work together and develop an app which now has more than 22 million. This week we went over to 22 million downloads, and which works quite well. This reason, or this success was the reason that we are also developing the European Federation Gateway, and we now have 11 European apps interconnecting and interchanging their information at EU level already. So that's a good news for COVID in the future. One thing I'm mentioning is also schools, and that's important for COVID. That was the big failure in Germany. The schools weren't digitized, and there I think our industry has a big task also to help schools to digitize and to connect. Let me go to the next slide, slide 3. If you look, and Claudia is from the US, and Deutsche Telekom is now the second biggest mobile operator in the US. If you compare EU and US, you can see some of the challenges we are having in Europe when it comes to 5G. And before I start with 5G, I just wanted to show you these numbers. I mean, if you look at the revenue development, you can see that US telcos have a huge growth. In Europe, the industry is shrinking. If you look at the market cap of the companies, it's even worse. By the way, Deutsche Telekom is the only, together with Vodafone, are the only telcos still in the Euro stocks. Telefonica and Orange fall out, and others didn't go in at all. If you then look what the reason might be there, you have to look at not only the revenues, but also the profits. And ROCE is the number which gives you an idea how profitable we are. And there's a huge gap between the US and the EU when it comes to profits. And that gives us not enough ability to invest. And that's the reason why CapEx, so the investments per head, are so low in EU and are bigger, much bigger in the US. And this is the reason why we are investing in the US $40 billion in 4G, and now in 5G we continue to invest that level, and we are having problems in Europe to invest the same numbers. Going back to COVID for one moment, I mean, if you look at the ones who are using our networks, 80% of the traffic is OTT traffic. They were the big winners. They were the real winners of COVID. And the combined market cap of GAFAM is now 5.5 trillion. That's a number which nobody can really imagine. And if you just look at the cash reserves, they are almost the sum the European Recovery Fund has. So there you see the real imbalance in tech in Europe. So let me finally come to the real topic, 5G, and how to, next slide, bitte, please, and how we progress. I mean, what we are doing, and by preparing a full coverage LTE, we were able to upgrade our networks very, very fastly in Germany. And that's the reason why we, even before the standard was ready, started in preparing the whole rollout. And by end of the year, we will exceed 67% of German population in 5G, which is a nice result. But anything beyond that is now a big investment. Additional antennas, additional sighting, and will cost a lot of money. This is mainly a software upgrade, to be honest. We are doing the same in our European footprint. And as I said, in the US, we are investing large scale. We are really spending big money. And that's what we are already did and to continue to do. And that gives you the lower line, the numbers. Let me finish with some investment challenges we are having in Europe. And they're related to the numbers I showed you before. I think in Europe, we are not only scattered, we have country by country different regulation. We increasingly have political intervention. And by that, we have auctions which are not really following market logic. And this is, I think, the main problem in Europe. We've seen so many political intervention in auction with conditions which have nothing to do with sound mobile planning or build out, that we will not see the uptake of 5G as we see it in the US. I think one of the biggest issues at the moment is that regulators have the idea that national roaming and some service providers could add to coverage. I don't know why this came up. It's a topic we are seeing in different countries, also in my home country, but particularly in the Czech Republic and Portugal, where we really having problems to understand why this should help coverage. To the contrary, national roaming never helped anybody to add any coverage. And what we are also missing in Europe is properties for sighting. And I think the biggest issue should be here that we get access to public property in order to build up our networks. So I stop here and leave most of it to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. A lot of topics and thoughts which we can further discuss. Before that, I would like to introduce our third panelist, Juris Binde, who is in the studio. He is the president of the Latvian mobile telephony since 1992. And also chairman of the management board of the company since 2004. He's also a professor at GSMA University of Applied Sciences and vice president of the Latvian Information and Communications Technology Association. Prior to becoming the president of LMT, He was the chief technologist and head of technological department at the Science Research Institute, VEF. Juris Binde has received several awards. In 2001, he received the Order of the Three Stars of the Republic of Latvia, and in 2014, the Swedish State Award, the Order of the Polar Star. Juris, if you can hear us in the studio, the floor is yours. You have the opportunity to be there in physical presence. Please let us know your views on 5G development.
Okay, thank you, Laszlo. Hello, everybody, my partners, and also all the people around the world who are following our session. 5G is a very, very interesting issue which has different angles and different aspects. First of all, this is a technology which allows to build out the mobile wireless network with a high speed, with a low latencies, and from the operator's perspective is just the next step in further development, because the operators build the first, second, third and fourth generation networks around countrywide, and definitely we will build the fifth generation as well. From the therefore, from the operator's perspective, is just the next step. Another issue is that by building this network infrastructure, in fact, we are building the empty house where we have no furniture inside, no technical appliances, and definitely it's quite difficult to live in such house. Therefore, it's most important is the second angle, how to fill up our house with applications, with the use cases which are necessary not for the operators as such, but for the many industries and society. Because according to the definitions, 5G network and 5G technology is basically industrial network which will support different industries, different areas of the utilization. And this is the most important part of the further development. Many of operators are nowadays thinking about the utilization of 5G networks, first of all for the mobile broadband. In Latvia, we very successfully utilized 4G network for the mobile broadband. And as a result, our customers are spending approximately 20 gigabytes per user per month, which makes Latvia as a top 3 user of mobile data. On the other hand, it means that our people, our customers are very well prepared for the further expansion of the data traffic spendings. The third aspect is a social aspect, because we know that there is a lot of hype around the 5G. In fact, it doesn't help very much for all parties, for operators, for vendors, and also for the society. Different gossips about how dangerous is the 5G frequencies, what is the correlation with the COVID-19 expansion and pandemics and other issues. From one side, of course, these are fantasies of the supporters of the flat Earth idea. On the other hand, it is important to convince the society that 5G is just next step, and it's not nothing very specific. And Yeah, if we are returning a little bit back to the development of the network, there will be several steps. The first step will be the integrated solutions, where the radio network will be integrated with the current 4G technologies. And on the next step, there will be built up the standalone systems. In fact, the situation in Latvia, and I assume in some other countries as well, it's a good opportunity to create the environment as a test bed where to test the different solutions, not only for mobile broadband, but also for medicine, for the drones steering beyond the line of sight, for safety, traffic safety and traffic management. Many of these solutions can be developed and tested by utilizing existing 4G network and this integrated 4+5G networks. So this is a very interesting time, a lot of challenges, and I very much appreciate this forum where we can exchange our opinions from different branches, starting from the operators, vendors, policymakers, and I foresee very interesting discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Juris. And I noted that obviously all of you touched upon the COVID pandemic and the challenges networks had to survive and upheld to the critical times. Also, you mentioned the skeptical voices around technology, anti-5G. I just wanted to ask how you see in the longer run how digitalization would accelerate and how this would help the 5G deployment, and whether the governments and the state would have a role. We see in Europe, for example, that there's a lot of emphasis is put on a digital recovery, even with a significant amount of funds will be available. And also in the US, of course, 5G has been a really big ticket and important for the state as well. How do you see the developments after these crucial times in the longer run? Would it help or a quicker 5G development?
I think I think that mobile technologies and 5G in the nearest future will play a very critical role in the digital transformation of all the economy and societies, especially considering all the limitations created by COVID pandemic. There are some countries which are ahead, and they are using these advantages. Other countries will follow, and definitely we have to speak about the increased digital literacy, because so far, until there is no external reason and external pressure to learn and to use the technologies and advantages of the technologies, basically people are lazy and not adopting very fast and with great pleasure. However, the current situation is that if you want to continue to work, to educate children, to develop the economy, therefore it's necessary to beside the or apart the technological development, it's also necessary to have this educational component for all the society, that the technologies are tools for the better working, better living, better living standards, better education. Thank you.
Thank you, Juris. I think, as I mentioned, there will be some funds available, particularly in Europe, and maybe that's an opportunity also for using the digital literacy. Are there any areas you would see important to put some European emphasis or some funds into that?
I think this is a part of overall development, and due to this pandemic isolation, it's also need to use European funds for the social restructuring as well, for these education programs. Because there is a quite huge difference how to teach and train children in the presence and how to do in the virtual environment. And this is the same like in industries, that the digital transformation doesn't mean that you are transferring from the paper form to Excel formats at table, but you need to review all the processes which are in connected to this transformation. And the same is also in education. The environment is good, but like in 5G infrastructure, we have to fill this environment with comfortable furniture, with methods of remote training and education. And of course, European funds have to play a significant role in supporting these processes.
Thank you, Juris. Before maybe we talk about a little bit of the furniture, first about the connectivity, which is obviously prerequisite for that. I also see on the slides, and Wolfgang, you mentioned supply chain disruptions, which play an important role in Europe and also worldwide in 5G development. Are there any thoughts or solutions you would suggest in this area, or how regulators can help with this approach, this issue?
Well, I think this is the result of a wider game. When the US went after Huawei, I mean, this was only the first start. What we are now seeing is, and that's impacting the entire 5G environment, export restrictions on microchips, an industry which is completely globalized and where the value chain is distributed all over the world. If they're starting to interfere, this might have unforeseen impacts on not only network equipment, but also on handsets. And that's an interesting development going on at the moment. And I don't think that the new president will change much. This policy will go on, and we have to adopt. So that's one of the first things where we as a telco industry have no real influence. The only thing we can do is securing supply of the right equipment for the future. But if microchips are not available for that equipment, then you're in limbo again. With regard to the radio access equipment, and that's a big topic, which is not directly related to the 5G standard, but which is now widely discussed all over the world. We are talking here about Open Radio Access Network, Open RAN. We have an alliance in the US, and we have also similar initiatives in Europe. And I think there it will be very, very important for us to accelerate this development in order to have more choice of vendors. I think the entire mobile industry is in a not very comfortable situation that we are relying basically on 3 big vendors worldwide, and then we're having some smaller. And one of the big and one of the smaller is not available in some parts of the world, and there's a lot of pressure not to deploy it in Europe either. To us in the industry, I think the answer can only be that we widen the spread of the vendors. And here the standard of 5G gives us opportunities, because with the cloudification and software-defined networks, which is part of 5G, part of the network steering will be in the cloud or mobile edge cloud. And then the radio access network can be constructed differently. And if we find enough money and initiatives to push that forward, we will have more choices maybe in 3 to 4 years. And that's also a big project, as I understand, the EU Commission is now supporting with a so-called IPSA, Important Project of Common European Interest. And also in Germany, we reserve 2 billion euros only for the development of Open RAN. So I'm pretty optimistic that we can push this forward.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Claudia, you also alluded to these open standards. Maybe you want to share your views on that from AT&T's point of view.
Thank you very much, Laszlo, and I very much agree also with what Wolfgang has just highlighted. Of course, as I was saying, the security of the supply chain is certainly critical and important. Innovation in network architecture, such as software-defined network, and more security as well in the edge will be critical. And also what we think it's important is creating open, interoperable technologies with an open interface. And this is an effort which is carried out by the ORAN, which is basically, a carrier-led effort to drive new levels of openness in the radio access network. And we think it's a good alliance where we discuss openly with different carriers, and we're trying also to make the networks more open and smarter. And so this spurs certainly innovation as well as competition, and will certainly also help 5G development and deployment. Also, the efforts around, the 3GPP standards for over-the-air interface can enhance security between the 5G mobile devices and 5G network. So also there, engineers as well as scientists and others, builders debate problems and provide solution as well to in this key body to standard setting process as well.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. Maybe I'm also mindful of the time and wanted to talk a little bit about the use cases and what are the most promising use cases beyond mobile broadband. And in particular, I'd like to ask, how do you see the role of verticals here? Many of them are showing interest, even to the extent that they are requesting spectrum resources to build networks themselves. How do you see this development in the vertical space?
Well, in Germany, we are in the midst of this already, because as maybe not everybody knows, we have 100 megahertz reserved for verticals and campus networks. And we now have already 2,000 campus networks being built or already built. So what we are observing here is that there's a lot of testing, of course, and trying to find out how 5G really in a campus environment works. I think the standard is as such as that the efficiency gains and also the productivity gains in consequence are promising. I think 5G can really deliver what it promised. I mean, we need to wait for release 17, where we then have really the real low latency abilities and also the centimeter level accuracy, and we can also expand capacity there. But that will come, I think, in a year or maybe 1.5 years. So, and pre-standard stuff is already being deployed in Germany in campuses. When it comes to the network as such, I mean, we are connecting such campuses and applications, but that's not the big business in the beginning. I think we are saying, well, mobile broadband, that's not a use case. I think it's a use case. And there's demand for even more broadband. And especially in COVID times, we are seeing that mobile broadband is consumed. So that's one use case. Another use case, and there I'm coming to South Korea, they are having a huge use case in gaming. And this is why we at Deutsche Telekom are also teaming up with SK Telecom in Korea to learn more and to develop devices which might also be interesting for the European market. So there are some initial use cases, but I think the broadband use case is not too bad.
Laszlo, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt your discussion because we need some time for asking questions to the panelists from our audience. And,
yes, sure.
And we have a few questions on this subject. Some of them are very specific, so I would be really happy that you could spend maybe 5 minutes to go to the platform and answer them specifically. They are quite complicated and quite simple ones. The most simple one is, are there any estimation when we could really expect 5G as a commodity? Jan Soepmans is asking. Very briefly, the year.
The full coverage we can expect maybe after 5 to 10 years, because considering the previous experience, how the previous generation networks were built out.
Mm-hmm. All right. Claudia, Wolfgang, Laszlo?
Well, I think commodity is not something I like. I mean, that would mean we are not earning any money anymore. But if it's meant like full coverage, I showed on my slide that we expect to be ready in 24, 25 in Germany and maybe a year later in other European countries. In the US, we might be even faster. So it's coming, and it's coming faster than previous technology.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And yeah, sure. And as I have said also during my kickoff remark, in the US, we are a bit ahead. And in fact, we have announced back in July that we are present already in 395 markets, so almost the whole territory, basically. So we are already experimenting, let's say, the commodity, so to say, of 5G, or the opportunity of 5G. But we are continue working on that to make it even more, even better.
Laszlo.
No, nothing to add. Definitely, the 5G transition is on.
All right. Okay. One more thing before we go. There's also a question from Zdenek Vanicek. There's growing impression around the world that under the pressure of overseas countries, some Eastern European countries are sacrificing longer-term innovation, competition and competitiveness. In addition, this does not bring us any further in terms of European digital sovereignty, but shifts the balance towards even more US dominance, distorts and reduces competition, will harm consumers long-term, etc. Is it correct or not?
I would say that the society, the telco society or the ICT society is quite split into different groups, and I can remind one good example when the GSM, the second generation, was created. When the GSM Association or GSM Memorandum of Understanding were putting at the same table operators, vendors and policy makers, and the decisions and the development of this technology, which initially was just expected as a pan-European system, very soon acquired all the world. And this is a good example how all the experts, all the industries, all the politicians have to work together to create the environment which is useful for the society.
Thank you, Mr. Binde. Thank you, Claudia. Gentlemen, I will leave you, before you go, and before you go, our attendees from this session, I will leave you with the artist's view on this topic. So let's see how it looks from the artist's view. Our artist here in the studio was watching you talking and listening carefully, and you can now go through that picture and see how it looks in his eyes. And let's find out something useful for you there. Even some correlation between COVID-19 and digitalization. Then there is recovery of the society, and 5G comes as a help, as you can see. We have to think about security of 5G network, yes. Full cover of 5G networks, 5 to 10 years or faster. It's added. So please enjoy the artist's view, and let's proceed. Thank you very much. So this is about the first year of 5G, and thank you, Claudia, Wolfgang, Juris, and Laszlo. Thank you very much. We are moving very, very quickly towards our next topic, which is 5G national spectrum strategies. As we know, national spectrum is the value to be shared. And 11:15 is Central European time. We will begin with that. Thank you very much.
the Riga Freeport, the one that borders the European Union and Russia. The world may have seen bigger ports, but when it comes to quality, whether it be our team, technology, or logistics, not many ports have the same standards as we do. We will be glad to work with you and support you in developing infrastructure. We will meet and guide your ships to the pier, and we will send them to their next destination. Riga Freeport. Big in business, big in quality.
Over the horizon, in what is tomorrow, lies the unknown. Applications we can't imagine today will change the way we live and suddenly become the norm. 5G is the path forward. However, it requires a staggering investment that means missteps aren't an option. Cisco provides the most important pieces of that investment: a flexible software-based service creation platform, security, and automation. Pay-as-you-grow licensing removes the risk in your journey to 5G and gives you the agility to move quickly. With a proven, open, and cloud-native architecture designed for now and the future, you get best-in-class network scaling that is simple and automated. Proprietary barriers disappear, and new revenue opportunities open. Services can be deployed when and where customers need them. Only Cisco provides innovative technology leadership that spans network operators, enterprises, the public sector, IoT, and web providers, bringing the expertise and security to support you every step of the way. With a flexible cloud-to-client approach, you can be ready to provide the unimagined. Between the needs of today and the trajectory of tomorrow, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.